your last name wrong. Tell me, Kat, say your last name.
Abianac.
Thank you, Abianac. So Kat, she's a business coach. She helps you monetize your organic social media, helps creators and coaches build reoccurring income without hustle or hiring. But Kat, you do so much. And because I'm going to pick on you. Look at your awesome tree.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I actually want a holiday tree, like a tree that I can just like put Valentine's Day things on and like Halloween things.
A holiday tree.
Yeah. I think it'd be
that's incredible. My mind exploded.
Yeah. So I guess we've now started the holiday tree trend. There we go. And
it's staying up now. We're going to have a New Year's tree and we're going to have a Valentine's tree. I pledge to you that I'm going to tag That Mum Show in February in my Valentine's Day tree.
Oh my gosh. I'm checking in on that. I hope you know. Like I don't miss things like that. It's ridiculous.
I want to see yours.
I'm going to put one up. I'm stoked. And see, I'm already thinking like little, I'm terrible. I'm like little alcohol we can hang from the tree for New Year's, little candies that I can hang for the tree for Valentine's Day. What other holiday? Is there anything in January? You're in Australia. What do you guys do in January? You do anything?
We celebrate Chinese New Year. So I guess that we could put like a giant dragon snaking the whole way up the tree and like a little mushu, bit of Mulan.
See? And then get gift cards to your favorite like Chinese restaurants and then hang them up and go use them.
This all sounds incredible. Funnily, I live a few streets from Chinatown and it's just, I actually adore the whole thing. So I might actually go like do it properly. I don't know.
Do it. See, now I just feel like, especially after this year, because I don't think that things are going to be back to normal in January, or at least not here in the US anyways. But
are you okay there?
It's election time. I'm surviving. I got my art supplies the other day and some toilet paper and I'm staying inside again. So we'll see what happens.
Amazing. Well, I'm not sure if you followed the news when the pandemic first hit, but Australia basically sold out of toilet paper. So my heart goes out to you. I know them feels like
and you're doing all this. So you're helping other businesses. You have your own stuff going on and you're a mama too, correct?
Yeah. So my daughter's actually a teenager. She's 15 in a week and she goes to school with her dad during the week. So she's at home on weekends. And then my son, Parker, is with me full time. So I'm a full-time single mum and he has Down syndrome and he goes to a standard public primary school. So yeah, there's always a little bit to juggle.
Yeah, for sure. And so can I ask you a little bit about Parker and like how is he? How is
life? How's life in the hood with Parker? And yeah, so I mean it's pretty great. Like, is this a video? Are you recording this for later or is this like
it's recording now and I should have let you know that too, that if there's anything that you want edited out or you feel like any of that, just let me know.
Totally. So I'll just show you, seeing as you're over here anyway. That through there is my office. So I actually ended up just like, I have an office at home, which is great. And Sandy's here. Sorry, Sandy. Amazing.
Hey, Sandy.
I love her. She's here twice a week. So she fixes most of my life and does a bit of a tidy up. And then, I have help with Parker. And luckily in Australia, we have pretty good government supports. It's called NDIS, the Disability Insurance Agency. And I know America has similar supports. So it is a juggle. And I know that people tend to say like, oh, you're so busy, you do so much. I technically do, but it's not a lot of, like, I'm just carrying a lot of cognitive workload. Like day to day, I mean, I don't mop, I pay a cleaner to do all of those sort of jobs. It's just more like juggling the cognitive balls. That sounds highly inappropriate. Yes. So right.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So, and I was even looking at that today, like even a couple of years ago, I wasn't in the place where I was in now. And when I had a letter come home with photos of Parker's feet showing me he needed orthotics, this was yesterday. I saw that letter and I was like, oh, he needs orthotics. And it was from like over a year ago, and I was so busy, and I was like, I don't know who to take him to, like who does that? What do I need to get? And so I've just found it in my emails because I was looking for other stuff, and I went, oh, okay, cool. I'll take him to get orthotics because I'm skilled up now. So like you can see, it's not always about resourcing or money. Like it's about cognitive workload and how many balls you can handle juggling in the air, because we all have a limited amount. And you know, I have Asperger's and ADHD, and I won't lie, like that really is a secret weapon, because when you're forced to, while it comes with challenges, when you're forced to regulate to not have a meltdown every so often, you just have a level up. Like I'm regulated most of the time because I don't tolerate a lot of things other people just take on. I not only fly my diagnosis flags, I shove people out of the way of things with them when required, to preserve my cognitive function and my executive function, because you know, I don't know what your life's like, but I've seen you online. Like it's pretty busy. You got stuff going on. When you've got like 3 emails and everyone's making things your problem, I feel like the whole bring solutions, not excuses, tends to apply even more when you have children and you're running a business.
Oh, completely. And a lot of we talked a little bit about this off before we started recording. And I like what you had to say about trauma responses and, you know, the path that you choose to take, because I feel like in life, in whether it's, you know, motherhood or business, when people are coming at you with so many things, it either, I mean, I guess that's a little extreme to say that everything triggers trauma responses, but it triggers.
Not far wrong.
Oh, good. I mean, it triggers, even if it's not a trauma response, like it triggers things in your everyday, and you have to be really strong to keep that mindset. Or like I love time blocking, and I feel a little rude sometimes when somebody comes to me with a problem, but I'm like, I did not time block this and this, and unless it's like a category like 10 and it needs my attention, you know, I'm pretty good about, you know, separating and staying stern about things. And I think because I was raised in such a harsh environment, I'm now like very protectant of that sort of time that I give people, which set me up for success in the long run. Bye, Sandy.
And she said bye. It's so true. Like, and you know, I think a really valuable thing was when I had not my current project manager, but my previous project manager, something that he taught me, because I was functioning in this cycle, right? This part he didn't teach me. I layered it on. What he taught me is you can always schedule time to think about it. You can always schedule time to find the solution, and you can always schedule time to action it without knowing what you're going to be doing in that time. And that was like, oh, I don't need to carry the cognitive workload and then pencil it in, because the key phrase you want to watch yourself for always is, it's quicker to do it myself. It's easier to do it myself. That is the biggest red flag that I know of, because when you hear yourself say it's easier or it's quicker to do it myself, that means that that you're using your executive function all day in real time on tasks, and that means you haven't created a handover framework so that can be done by somebody else if it's a low value task. And what I ended up doing is I wrote down every task that I could genuinely say in my life was easier for me to do myself. And I made it not easier for me to do it myself. I made it so it was actually more work for me to do it than for me to just call someone on my team or get a contractor in or call a babysitter. Or there are so many workarounds. And I'll give you one tiny example. This is where business and life overlap so much, and you can make reasonable accommodations for yourself. Did you know you don't need to have a disability to make reasonable accommodations and work around things and make your life easier and smoother?
Mind blowing.
You deserve that just based on regular old human rights. If I'd known this before I found out that I had autism and ADHD, whoa, sometimes we need that trauma or a diagnosis to make us sort things out. But you guys learn from what I just figured out. You can just have it. You don't need to pay $3,000 for a diagnosis. My son takes longer than other children when I take him to swimming. So it's called transitioning. When you go from a preferred activity to a non-preferred activity, our minds don't want to do it. And if we've got limited executive functioning for the day, we have to troubleshoot, or there's a new path, which happens when he has to get out the pool, there's different people, he has to find a new way around. That's draining. It's literally draining. He doesn't know if his clothes are going to catch coming on and off and frustrate him. His brain knows all these things are possibilities. So it says, do what you're doing. This is preferred. It's easy. You're already in the pool. We'll just stay here. We'll write it out a little bit longer. And then your brain slowly comes to account with the fact that you have an activity to do, which is why sometimes when you say to a man, go do your job, they lay there for 20 minutes and then they go do their job. And you're like, what? Their poor brains need to transition into the next activity. So we need to make reasonable accommodation sometimes, because genuinely women can transition better. That's why women don't get diagnosed with autism quickly. It's called masking, because we can transition, even though we will melt down. Socially acceptable for us to have a meltdown because they call it crying. So back to my son at the pool.
I love
He has a lesson, which goes for 20 minutes. And then I have to sit there by the pool and wait. That costs me money because I had to finish work earlier. I have to do a whole bunch of different things. And it's really inconveniencing everyone. And I'm parked in a certain place. And also, it's over time, it's kind of like eroding the relationship with his one-to-one instructor because he's trying to get her attention and she's got the next class. Now, I could just suck it up and go, oh, he's got Down syndrome. Everyone, or how can we find a reasonable accommodation? Well, I thought of it last week. My child can now swim. He's been going to swimming lessons so long, and I just bloody thought of this. So it requires creating scheduling in time for you to think about this stuff. I thought about this in the time I had scheduled to sit down and think of solutions to make my afternoons easier. And my brain clicked, and I was listening to meditation music, and I went, oh my gosh, I saw twins at the pool and they'd booked doubles. So now Parker's booked for a double, and I've said to her, he can have a 25-minute lesson, then you call time and you can transition him for 15 minutes. That's pretty reasonable. You don't have anyone else in the pool. You're getting paid double. And honestly, swimming instructors, oh my gosh, have you seen how underpaid they are? I was like, dude, I should be paying you so much more money. But it's more valuable because I can sit there and do what I was doing, which is normally I order groceries when I'm at the pool because he's got one-to-one care. Mm-hmm. So it's looping in a bunch of things, but suddenly it's easier for me to take him to the pool than have someone else do it because I don't have to transition him out of the pool anymore. She's doing it for me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I've just drawn
totally. And it's funny. So, personal experience, my son loves swimming lessons and was doing swimming lessons, and we couldn't, it was such a big group where we're going, very overpopulated in this little area. So I would go swimming with him, and it's so exhausting to do that. And I smell like chlorine every day. Like I'm tired of doing that. And you really have to think about it. And it's not that you don't love your kids. Of course you love your kid. And in fact,
but I don't like swimming. I don't like smelling like chlorine. And who wants to blow dry their hair 3 times a week?
And I can't smell like chlorine that much. So, I love that. Yeah, it kind of correlated with that. Just and if people thought about that a little bit more, whether it's the nanny or just something, just a little something, and really take that if they're unhappy, and choose a path a bit. So I love that story.
Yeah, it's like choose your own adventure, right? Like I know a lot of people, and I've got, I've had clients in the past who maybe aren't the biggest fans of the type of clients they're servicing. And it tends to happen when they're doing done for you kind of work, right? And they're like, oh, I've had scope creep and, these are the expectations I've laid out and now here's what's happening. And you can coach somebody on, obviously the solution isn't always getting a tighter contract. Sometimes instead of narrowing it down, it's having a 5-minute introduction bump in where you remind them of what the call's about and the expectations, and you send them deliverables. And I can help someone set up all of that, or I can go, do you like it? actually like what you do, because I can think of 30 things that you would crush. I just had a conversation with somebody who's about to set up a weekend program, which looks pretty incredible, and it's nothing to do with what she does in real life to preserve her privacy, but she's going to crush it because every single one of her skills is transferable into this weekend mini course that she's about to run in real life for people. Every single one. And so I just looked at her skill set. I looked at other skill sets. You map the paths together. So sometimes I feel like reasonably accommodating yourself is going, do I need to sit in trauma to decide this is too much? Do I actually need to get my credit card to hit the limit before I decide that I'm going to launch, because that is what will overcome the fear? Because like it can be such an away goal, right? Like you might have all the skills in the world. And I remember, I mean, it makes it easier, sure, but it's transitioning out of that into how can I make it easier and easier every time for myself without shaming myself for having waited till trauma to get the result.
Yes, exactly. And taking it's I can't remember her name. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tom Bilyeu. She was
Yes.
featured on his show. Love Tom. But she mentions like the countdown theory. Like you just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Yeah, and you get up and you do something about it. And it doesn't matter where you're at, because motivation is fleeting and it's not always going to be there. And sometimes we need to just find that discipline to kind of jab in our way a little bit.
Totally. Can we hit pause on the recording and have like prelude, and I'm going to go answer my front door and I'll be right back.
Yeah, you're good.
I feel like you need to leave this on your podcast because I'm literally just multitasking as a mother right now. I have 3 deliveries rolling.
I think we need to leave this. That is the ultimate mom, boss, babe, multitask in life right there.
I groceries randomly on my porch that I forgot I scheduled for delivery a week ago. So that was good. Now I have a nice lunch.
That's good. Good. See, I love that you're utilizing the tools around you to help your everyday life here as well.
Oh my gosh, I don't go to the shops much. So what I just carried in, so actually what I teach a lot of is there's no such thing as business in life. It's just kind of how it works. Sorry, I just carried in a 20 kilo box, which is about 40 pounds. So for example, we have limited time, right? Like how many non-child hours do you have in your week, would you say?
So I have a half and half schedule with my son. So I don't have him full time. So, and that, my partner and I have talked about having more kids, and I would really need a plan for that, because that would be a big change to our schedule.
Yeah, so that would then limit you to either 8 hours a day or 6 while they're at school or kindergarten or daycare. And even if you only have your child half the time, that only helps for 1 week. It doesn't actually help you for every week, right? So you're still having to write your schedule around having your child at home, and then you just get bonus time because that's what you do to accommodate. So, say you have a week with lots of things scheduled, something happens at home, if you have the tools at your disposal and you're kind of scheduling the time to solve the problems. So I have time scheduled for and here's the project manager stuff that I got taught, and then I lay it on tools versus strategy, which is, I constantly talk about tools versus strategy. They're separate brains. People jump into tool brain, they should have been in strategy brain, and that's when they kind of make little errors. You schedule time for strategy, and then you fix the problem, then you physically fix the problem, and that will fix everybody's inability to outsource as well, which I had like it was a disease. I was unable to hire for so long because I would hand over tool by tool, go do this thing, go do this thing. Now I hand over full strategies and I go solve this problem and bring me the solution you created. So do it to yourself. Give yourself the time to solve the problem and deliver the solution to yourself. Say to yourself, I don't want excuses, I want results. Schedule in time to provide results to yourself instead of providing excuses when that one tool that, I needed to solve the problem that Parker throws his books around in his room. He loves it. Children crave proprioceptive responses into their nerves that attach to bone and muscle, right? When they have low tone. What does a child with low tone do when they're feeling a little bit agitated? They throw books. So if you're out there and your child throws books a lot, go buy them some phone books, take them up and let them throw them around the backyard. I can guarantee you they'll stop throwing stuff in their room. So I have a beautiful new bookcase that I thought to order because it displays everything and all the toys, and it's got lids that I can, tape up if I want to, with the little toys. The reason I now own that and I don't need to clean that room in my work time is because I schedule the time to go, what does Parker's room need to look like so that when clients come, there's not like toys in the backyard, nothing's being thrown, everything's where it should be. And so it took me 25 minutes. I ordered that, it rolls in, and now I am about to, when I get off this, schedule an event to call the handyman to put it together. I don't schedule the time to put it together. I don't randomly call the handyman. I schedule the time to organize the handyman, because then when I'm in that time, I can call him, I can organize it. If he's not available, I can organize an air tasker, and then I can schedule a follow-up so that if it's not done, it doesn't fall off my radar.
I love that. Okay, so let me just pick at that a little bit, make sure I understand you for everybody listening. So first we're going to make the schedule. That's like,
first we're going to define the actual solution that we want and stop thinking about the problem. So the solution that I had scheduled the time to solve was Parker throws things in his room.
Okay, I like that. Rather than saying I need a bookcase, you're like,
that's a tool.
Yeah.
So I implemented a tool which is going to drain my executive function because I can't even remember the problem I was trying to solve, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so that's I see. Okay.
Schedule time to create a strategy to fix the problem, and then you schedule time to implement the tool that you decide on.
And do you feel like you come up with, I just by kind of doing it a little bit with you here, I feel like I would come up with better. So, maybe the solution isn't just the bookcase. The solution is throwing books in the backyard. It seems like you really get to focus on what the actual problem is.
Yeah. So the reason I know that is because he had that problem and I made sure that it got addressed at an OT appointment because it was that much of a problem. So I prioritized it. And I find like the traps that we get in is we don't address problems because we've catastrophized the tools that it'll take. Because we're always thinking about the drain on our executive function, whether we know it or not. We don't know that. Like we don't sit around going, oh, I can't do that. I will only have 3 spoons left, if you've heard of spoon theory. It applies to neurotypicals as well. We all have a limited amount of spoons when it comes to our energy and like, available levels to support ourselves with. At some point, we will exhaust ourselves. And at some point, if we are constantly creating adrenaline rushes, have you ever, when you're so busy and stressed already and something happens and you feel like in the bottom of your stomach drop? Because you just have that thought and it's like a curtain drops. That is your adrenal glands dropping adrenaline into your stomach. So that is what contributes to burnout. If you're watching this and you've ever had one of those moments where you're already stressed and you do a really big breath and then you have that thing pop in your head, I call them traffic light moments, like a wave of previous trauma or a reminder of something that you just realize you're going to get in lots of trouble for or you've done, and you feel like the pit of your stomach drop, you've just had a burst of adrenaline hit your stomach from your adrenal glands. And if that is happening frequently, you will have burnout. Because that's the cause. It's one of the causes. Obviously, there's more than just adrenals getting screwed. But once you know to identify that, you can start to regulate, because it happens to all of us because we're all high performers because we're parents.
Yeah. That's a good little, I love that. We're all high performers as parents. So, and even if you're not an entrepreneur, you do your own business, it is, well, let me ask you that. When was the last time that you had to work like full-time hours for somebody else? How long ago was that?
Oh, for somebody else.
Yeah, for somebody else. Yep.
Oh my gosh. So I was working for Constance Hall, who's an Australian influencer. So that would have been 2017, early 2017.
Okay. And were you taken care of well there? You
No,
like
I actually had adrenal burnout. I had I had full burnout.
perfect. Yeah, well, that's not
Two,
perfect.
no, yeah, well, it was great. Well, was it? Because it
Well,
was a very safe place to burn out. I was well funded, I was in a job, and that's actually what led me to realize what adrenals are and the role they play in our body and how you can kind of break them if you're living on caffeine. And I was actually a smoker at the time.
ouch. That's a lot on your body. I used to smoke. It was only for a year and a half and I quit. And in fact, I was thinking about that the other day. Like I don't feel like I give myself enough like, hey, you're awesome. Remember that you hit the goal.
Like, that's amazing that you don't smoke anymore, because these are crutches that we use because we don't have OTs as adults and we don't have behavioral therapists telling us how to regulate and self-soothe, because every time we pick up a cigarette, it's because we've wired ourselves to self-soothe by creating the withdrawal, by having the cigarette. Like, the entire process of addiction is designed to please our body in that moment where we pick it back up, relieve the signal, the stress signal, because that's replicating self-soothing over and over and over. So when they say people turn to alcohol because they're stressed, they are literally self-soothing, exactly like when my son's sitting at school stimming and chewing on his finger.
mm-hmm. And we can I mean, talk about caffeine, talk about video game addiction, social media addiction. Humans love routine. Like we love it.
We love it. Oh, that's such a great thing, because do you know what? Here's when people go, oh, I don't understand how you quit that or you do that, because I was quite unhealthy. I was very skinny. I had big puffy bags under my eyes. This was all grey. Then I was overweight. Then I was really skinny again because I took diet pills. And then my smoking habit went from, I have cigarettes in the drawer at work and I have one with work colleagues on my lunch break, to suddenly I was smoking in the car park at work before I drove home, and then I was smoking in the car park before I went into work, and then I was like sneaking in my backyard where my children couldn't see. My daughter's never seen me have a cigarette. My son hasn't seen me have a cigarette apart from when a babysitter kind of brought him out, and I was like, ah, and that was one of my moments where I went, oh, my child has respiratory issues and my hair smells like cigarette sometimes. That's not okay. So I quit, right? But all of these things that we do are just, they keep our bodies in this toxic state where we're forced to self-regulate with caffeine, with alcohol as a depressant. So we regulate with depressants, with stimulants, and it slowly builds up the toxicity. So when we can layer in routine, this is why people like Mel Robbins, who you were talking about earlier being on Tom Bilyeu's show, who does like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just do the thing, because you can get your brain to do something that quickly, and that kind of starts your spiral upward again, because you don't need to be depressed or you don't need to be hyper anxious or any of these things to be able, again, you don't need to be in severe trauma to start making these changes, because when we're in severe trauma, we're more likely to make great big life changes because it happens at a crossroads. But by creating routine, we're making the neurological pathway easier to travel, because we can build it over time and we can reinforce it. So that's why when we create one routine and layer another one on, we're actually creating massive change that snowballs, just like compound interest.
And would you agree with the term start small, build?
Oh my gosh, you have to. Okay, so I love bringing my therapy team into every conversation, because they are just like walking gods and goddesses on this earth. So my speech therapist, my son's speech therapist, her name is Jane Beale. She's absolutely incredible. She has been a speech therapist for 23, 25 years. She teaches a model about zones, and it's how you teach all humans to learn most effectively. People learn when they're in their green zone and they're nice and calm. Everybody has a different green zone, and your green zone changes depending on what's happened that day. If you have childhood trauma from being in a car and somebody had a road rage incident, and you drop your child at school and you've had the best morning and someone toots you and swears, and suddenly you're in your yellow zone and you're heightened and your adrenals dropped and you're sitting in adrenaline, which brings up your cortisol, which literally cuts off your memory and makes you dumber. If your cortisol is up, if you're a shouter, if you stop shouting, you will be smarter. It's science. So stop shouting. Just try it.
Yeah.
So on those bad days, if you're a shouter, cut out shouting for like 48 hours. Set a timer and you'll notice that you get more done. You can stay in your green zone. If you regulate by shouting, amazing. Get through that, go back to shouting for a little while, regulate out of it. But if you get home and you had some trauma triggered or something happened and you're in your yellow zone, modify your activity and start even smaller, and you can ramp yourself up so much quicker. Because if you can ramp down, when people go, I'm not in the mood, it's just been a day, like nothing's really happened, but I can't. Don't. If that's genuinely where you're at in life, schedule something smaller, create a smaller starter level routine for yourself. And on the days where you're like, I can't even, have an I can't even routine and just do the can't even routine for the morning until you can, and then go back to your I can routine, which I just made up, but now I want a framework for.
I love it.
We do, we can modify things just like we do for our children as well. And it makes life a lot easier, especially in business. How many times do things go wrong all day?
All the time.
I've got a morning checklist that takes me technically 2 hours to do. And my project manager's theory is, if you do your this is my old one, I love him, I'll make fun. If you do your morning checklist, Kat, you won't have fires to put out. And I'm like, great, but sometimes I can't because I don't have the time and I'll get distracted and things will happen and it'll just pile up. Or maybe I'm not perfect that day. Maybe I need to meditate or cry or drink 3 coffees with a friend that I really like. So I have like a little mini version where my admin now, he just puts my top things in my in tray. I just go do those. And he knows, he'll just mop up after me with the super important stuff. So you can modify for yourself as you go too.
And there's situations in life that we have to go through, like such as parent teacher conferences or certain tasks that we have to meet, and I feel like, and that sounds, hang on, let me stop myself there before I insult some men. Women are really good at it. The ones that I know, and it is really hard to pull yourself together and be like, okay, I just got off of, a 9-hour shift. I got to go to PTA, or I got to go do this or do that. And sometimes like there are those suck it up, but you so have to, like you said, like, I love your, you can't even routine, because how many times, I mean, like right now we're going through the election in the US. Like, I just feel heavy. I don't want to talk to anybody really. Like I can't even, and where I'm at, and that's kind of where I need to be for a second. And a lot of that involves like staying off of Facebook and things that I just need. And you guys, if you're grieving, if you went through a loss, I know a lot of people in the family, when they're going through something like that, they suck it up for a lot of the other family members, but make sure that whatever it is, that you make this can't even time and you allocate those breaks for yourself, because burnout is real. In my opinion, burnout makes you sick, whether it's like physical sick or mental sick. It'll do both eventually. So
it will. It'll make you sick on every level. I remember it will also make you more prone, having cortisol building up in your body long term over time, and constant adrenal dumps will make your body hold toxicity. You will retain water. You will find white patches on your hands and feet. That's another sign that your body is starting to become toxic. And like you could go and book yourself a week meditation retreat and then come back and crash. Or you could start by drinking a liter of water every morning for 2 days, 3 days, and then 4. And then or you could start by drinking 1 cup. I know people who are very stressed, and then when I break it down, they physically don't drink water. If the number one thing in life you have the ability to do, if you have 5 minutes a day and that's all you tell me you have, as a coach, I would say use it to sit there and drink water. 1 minute a day, 5 times a day, drink water, drink water, drink water. Because you literally, like, Imagine a sponge that you use and squeeze and use and squeeze, and you're just dipping it in water versus putting that sponge in a washing machine for 2 minutes once a week. Imagine what that sponge will look like after, I don't know, 36 years.
That's
It just adds up. Like the little things that we can do, we get to make them so, so small. And the fact that something small seems insurmountable should be a very large red flag to you that right now you're in avoidance mode and there are some changes that you will need to make before the trauma happens.
Avoidance mode. That's a touchy one. Yeah. I feel like, so I actually had to stop giving people advice. Like my sisters don't want to hear it. People don't want to see my comments on Facebook. Like there was just one point where I'm like, but I want to help you. Like, I want you to listen to this influencer, like listen to this hour podcast right on that problem that you're complaining about. And I had to really take back because I was, of course, like one, no one really likes me when I do that. and two, I'm actually losing my train of thought. Hang on. No, it's gone. Desiree.
That's a good. I'll talk about that because that happens to me too. Because I mean, obviously, I'm talking from my own experience of my stories, and we get to actually talk about our stuff that sits comfortably with us. And I think it's like what you said is a really good reminder that two things will happen. The stories we tend to share are emotionally anchored for us. So it's easier for us to share it if we've had an emotionally anchored event, like for me, burnout is emotionally anchored. It was very low time. And then I also dealt with it and I cleared the emotional stuff. So now I have this emotional trauma event. When I say trauma, a good friend of mine is actually studying she's doing her thesis for her doctorate at the moment, and she's specializing in PTSD in children with disabilities in the school system. I just took her to a meeting at my school the other day. So something I find interesting is how many people have trauma or PTSD and don't know. They just have no idea what PTSD signs are and all that sort of thing. But, you know, diagnosed or not, when we have these events and we talk about them later, I find there's so much value in, even if it does trigger people, it depends on whether you're a bit of a disruptor or if you're a harmonizer. Harmony is actually my bottom strength on Clifton strengths, which means that people tend to leave, like everything comes on the table and then it kind of gets smoothed out. But because I tend to talk about this stuff a little bit more and I'm not triggered by it, it can trigger other people. So you kind of end up having it both ways. Like I will share my stories with people and they'll go, meh, but that's okay because that story, I shared it for me. It wasn't about them. I just wanted to tell them my story. And then sometimes we share our story and somebody's seeing us talk about like being diagnosed at 32 with autism. The amount of women who have gone and gotten diagnosed, I don't know them. They just follow me on Facebook or Instagram, or because I have no weird emotional kind of attachments to it. So even if people ignore us, which I know they do, I just think there's so much value in technically not coaching, but telling stories about our stuff. Yeah. Like just talking about it, which is why I love that you literally have a show called That Mum Show.
Yes, it's, and again, because like, there's so many different people, especially like where I live, there's just, we've got the super religious, we've got the super not religious, we've got the super spiritual, we've got the super, I don't even know, nerd. I'm just trying to like throw out something. But there's so many different types of moms, but like no matter what, again, I just saw the need, like our kids are going to go to school together. Our kids, they're the next generation. Like, what are we doing here? If not to make a difference? And I said this on the last episode. I think that social media and the internet is really the tool that we have to save mankind. Like I realize that there's,
oh my gosh, yes, we talk about this. I love this.
Yeah. And it's still like, it's like, obviously I don't think that, how do I say that? Like supplies, water, shelter, like there's all these natural, like, of course, like humans need, but it's like, how are we going to get there? Like now that we're so advanced in life, and even more so, we're overpopulated, we're running out of supplies. Like, what do we do? Why else did we invent this? And, you know, it's not supposed to be just for
Survival.
Yeah.
That's really funny. You're so right. You know, Maslow's hierarchy, that triangle, and we make fun of the bottom one and we write Wi-Fi as the primary need, but then we have food, water, shelter, and then it kind of heads up, and then we've got community connection, and at the very top, there's self-actualization. If you go back and you look at Maslow's original research and everything he's ever done, he never created it as a hierarchy. He
Yeah.
actually just created the needs, right? So we all need to self-actualize. We all need to be supported. We all need a community just as much as we need, you know, like a attachment with a caregiver, and we need food and water and air. Like all of this stuff is of equal importance. And I don't know if have you read Sapiens before, the New York Times bestseller?
I haven't.
It's such an incredible book about, you know, just humans in general and our evolution and society's evolution.
Sapiens?
Sapiens, yeah.
Oh,
Like
nice.
sapiens without the homo in front. Yep. So like the whole sapien and all of the species of them, because I'm not of the science. I have no idea. It's written by a sociologist. The happiest, like people just sit around and talk smack for like 8 hours a day, chilling and hanging by fires and in their villages and talking and connecting and like, you know, coming up with our different little kind of interests and groups and all the stuff we do on social media. Literally, imagine if all this cool stuff on social media was in real life.
Yeah.
Would you imagine that? Imagine if our lives were so simple, they were like Facebook, and we could just meet our own basic needs, and then you could just strip out all of the Lambos and then all of the private jets that are rented and on the airfield and there's selfies in them, and then just have all the like communities and the groups, and we just go do our thing and hang out and come back. I feel like that's what we were meant to do, just connect and be in our communities.
Yeah. And I mean, think about it. A lot of people only had their families to connect with. So it was that familiar, just kind of what you had, what you knew.
Villages were small. They used to cap out. They even, like, I love that actually in the book. You will love it. It's
I'm
so up
excited.
your alley. Yeah, it's like he talks about like the primary numbers when actual tribes would automatically, without knowing it, split off because the dynamics of a group of that size necessitated a new group's creation, and then they would just hang out and do everything together again, which is, you know, I know they've come up with like magical numbers, like 147 is like this magical number of friends you can maintain connections with, and all that stuff comes into it. But like, I don't know, I just think we were meant to like drink water and hang out with our kids, and if something goes wrong, like call people and ask for help, you know. That's
Well,
probably the thing I do now. Like, do you do that more now? Like, do you just ask for help now? I do.
I do. Now that I've finally come to terms, you know, that a village, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. So I was a teen mom. I actually didn't mention that off air. So I was a teen mom.
Oh, I was a
And
young mum. I was
yeah.
there.
And like I really because having the family background that I had, I really just knew it had to be me. Like I was headstrong. Like I didn't really, I always felt like I was bothering people. And I never gave people the chance to say, like, either yes, you're bothering me, or no, you're not. I would just assume. And that was the worst, like the most unhealthiest thing that I could have done for me. And it really put me back so many years. I could have accomplished so much more had I asked for more help, the right help. And again, not assumed. That was the worst thing. And now I find it was so funny because I've lived that way my son's whole life. He's 11 now. I felt like I lived that way for so long. In fact, it wasn't even until just this last I did like 3 years ago that I really put the boundaries on bad relationships, whether in my family, because I was so in the routine that if one of my family members needed something, it was like, yeah, you can live in my living room if you need to. Like I had no boundaries until finally one day I had to step up and I was like, look, you got this place for yourself for your son so your son could go to school, so you didn't have to live with a roommate anymore, so you didn't have to, so you could actually do something by yourself. You didn't get this place so your family could move in again. You didn't get this place so your friends could, I I don't know, I guess my friends are pretty good. They don't really like hang out or lounge around. But I did have to put these boundaries with some family members, and it was really hard. Um, and then now, because I've always perceived myself as the person that like I wouldn't ask for help, I was headstrong, everything like that. And then I was doing this little quiz with my boyfriend a couple weeks ago, and it asked a question about me, like, would I rather ask for help or get it done myself? And I, of course, thought like the answer was get it done myself. I still kind of thought this about myself. And then he said, I think you'd rather ask for help. And I was like, that's good. It's progress. Because I remember when we were first dating, I actually needed something to be moved. And I had rented a little truck from a truck company, like a moving truck, to get it done and moved for me. And it just completely like went over my head that I have a great boyfriend who has a great dad who loves me and has a truck and a trailer and will come and help if I ask. And I didn't even ask him. I just got the moving truck and stuff. And then ever since then, I really have just fell out of the habit. Like somehow it was little by little. I had to be conscious about it. And actually, let me stop my tangent for a second, because there's two things that I want to ask you before. I know I don't want to take up all your time, so I'm sorry. But do you have a morning routine now?
Yeah, so I do have a morning routine. Actually, I think you might like this too. There's a behavioral economist called Dan Ariely, and I kind of fangirl over him a bit. He's got some great books. I used to study behavioral economics and user experience and user all that sort of stuff when I was at Australian Taxation Office. So I was their Facebook channel expert. But before that, I worked in their debt area as a manager. So there was a lot of behavioral economics involved. And this is about my morning routine, I swear to God. So he's actually released, so I needed new scales. And as Facebook loves to do, because I'm logged into Gmail, I was Googling scales, or I don't know. And I looked them up on Amazon, and then I got retargeted on Facebook with Shapa, or Shaper, I don't know, but it's this set of scales, and they're designed by Dan Ariely. SHAPA, like 100% give them a shout out in the show notes, because it is so cool. So I bought this scale, I got the app, and it's established my routine for me. So like it's designed just to weigh you, but then it doesn't tell you your weight. It just assesses it for 2 weeks, because I don't care really about my number. I'm very fit. Like I can lift a lot of weight. I just want to know that I'm healthy and that my body fat percentage isn't increasing too much, because I should probably eat less food. And I have a fitness coach that watches that anyway. So I just want all the data to go to her, and she can tell me how many calories to eat for the day, because I like her to think for me. There's another hack I use for my executive functioning, by the way. She orders my groceries with me on Friday. She makes sure my dispenser with my vitamins is refilled for all my SUPs, and she redoes my SUPs based on my sleep. But back to my morning routine, because I swear this is what we're talking about right now.
You're good.
It prompts me to get on the scales at 6 a.m. and that starts my morning routine. So because I have that, it's now got me in my morning and my evening routine. And it took me through a series of prompts. So now my life is very much set around making everything easy. And like you were talking about, making it easy for yourself, my vitamins are in my upstairs bathroom, which is next to the scales, because I know I have to be on the scales. It's helped me choose the most appropriate time based on when I actually wake up, not when I say I wake up. Based on all my routines. And then I go through my lemon juice now is in the bathroom upstairs. So is salt. So salt and lemon juice goes in a big glass of water. I weigh myself, I drink the water, I refill it, I take the pills, I take those, and then I come downstairs, and then I start my journal and my meditating until my son wakes up. If he's awake and I'm awake, it doesn't matter. I still weigh myself. I get to have my SUPs, and I get to alkalinize my stomach before I start my day. So even if I don't have breakfast till later, I'm not going to get like pangs and just feel really icky. So yeah, I do have a morning routine. It's just heavily modified for my insane home life.
Yeah. Well, and with morning routines, and listeners, I don't think morning routines are always exactly supposed to look the same.
Nope.
Like obviously, like you have the water and the vitamins, like those are the key like components. And I just barely got my whole family drinking water first thing in the morning. Like I can tell they're groggy, and I'm like, just get it running through your system. Um, and anybody with kids that's getting ready for school, I love YouTubing chill step, just like instrumental music to start the morning. It just changes the whole vibe in the house. Like no one's a sassy preteen at that moment. He comes out of his room and he's lovey and gives me hugs, and it's nice. So but something I kind of want to just dig into a little bit more, and then I swear I'll let you go. So with the morning routine, I know like I kind of want to expand on start small here. Like, how do we get that morning routine, especially if you've been in the habit of like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll be motivated tomorrow and such.
Yes. Oh, yes. Let's
What's
talk.
your advice on how to start small with that?
Yeah. So you'll find a lot of people, and this confused me because, like you, I was a caretaker as a child, which is an attachment response to inconsistent caregivers. And so, what we do to control our environment is we're the ones who are in control. We care for everyone. If it's going to be anyone's fault, whose fault is it going to be? It's going to be our fault because we control that.
Yep.
Therefore, we take the consequences because if it was our fault, we know the outcome, which is controllable. By the way, that reduces our required levels of executive functioning because we're not catastrophizing if we're caretaking. So it's actually a very acceptable trauma response. Not that I'll go too deep on trauma, but not only is it very acceptable, it gave me the skills to get to where I am now. So while it never should have happened, I will 100% say I'm so grateful that I had the responses that I had, and now I can look back and recognize them because, like, look at you.
Yeah.
Look what you've achieved and the skills you have that people without that sort of like what you've gone through just will never have that knowing, like that acknowledgement, that knowing of what you've done and that you'll never do certain things again. Like people, you've already made mistakes that some people are not going to make to their 40 or 50 and they're going to wildly regret. I just feel like we've been there, done that for a lot of things.
I love that mindset. That's beautiful. That's like
Yeah,
the most beautiful way I've ever heard someone talk about mistakes ever. That was great.
it's just so true. And like, you know, when my clients launch, I say to them, like, I had a client today and he's amazing. Like, he's amazing. And he hasn't launched yet, right? And he's just released this incredible mini course. And we were looking at doing his first group program, and I was talking about, you know, like recurring membership. That's scary. Where does a recurring membership end? It bloody doesn't. It's recurring. It's infinity. Oh my God, that gives kids nightmares. 12 months. So you just keep modifying. And I saw his body language change at 12 weeks, 90 days. So that's what we rolled with. Like, you get to figure out what you're comfortable with in your morning and starting there. And the thing is, especially if you've had quote unquote trauma, I don't care what you call it. You can call it PTSD, you can call it trauma, you can call it an interesting childhood, and by the way, when I say trauma, you can experience things that people wouldn't call trauma. You can think something